Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. This is Dr. Jennifer Jones, Board President. First item on the roll call, on the agenda is roll call. Scholar Representative Sophia Majors, will you start? Oh, sorry. Izzy Owens, will you start?
Izzy Owens, Tobacco High School.
Trudy Davis, Director, District 4.
Eric Gollings, Director, District 1.
Lakeisha Phillips,
Jennifer
Director,
Jones,
District
Director,
3.
District 2. Okay. Oh, Lakeisha Phillips is online. Okay,
Yes, I'm online. Lakeisha
Oh.
Phillips, Director, District 3.
thank you.
Danny Pfeiffer, Superintendent.
Next is a presentation of colors by the Federal Way High School JROTC. Please rise if you are able.
Hope. Left. Face. Breathe. Colors. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Carry. Color. Dismount. Color. Right. Face. Port. Color. Forward. March.
You may now be seated. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting agenda. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of March 10th, 2026 as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the required approvals agenda. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the required approvals agenda of March 10th, 2026 as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is school welcome, Nautilus K-8, Dr. Pfeiffer.
Oh, thank you so much, board team. I'm so excited to be here at Nautilus K-8 this evening. So thank you to the staff and the students for hosting us. I'm going to invite Principal Emily Veeling to do our school welcome, highlighting the strengths and opportunities for growth here at Nautilus. Principal Veeling.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Jones, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Pfeiffer, and scholar representatives to the board. I'm so excited to share a snapshot of the learning, growth, and community that make Nautilus K-8 such a special place. Nautilus is one of only 3 K-8 schools in Federal Way Public Schools, serving about 475 scholars from kindergarten through 8th grade. Our elementary program primarily serves our neighborhood community, where our middle school is a choice program focused on project-based learning and STEAM. Our scholars represent an incredibly diverse community, speaking 21 languages at home. While our scholars span a wide variety of ages, what makes Nautilus so special is that we truly operate as one learning community. From our youngest kindergartners to our 8th graders, our students are so proud to be Nautilus navigators. At Nautilus, we know that scholars learn best when they feel safe and know that they belong. We focus on building strong relationships, clear expectations, and positive behavior systems across our entire school. One example of this is our Universal School Jobs Program for 4th and 5th graders, which gives students meaningful ways to contribute to the school community and develop leadership skills. One job that has been especially meaningful this year is our Morning Greeters program, where scholars welcome students and their families as they arrive to school each day. We found that this has supported improved attendance and more timely arrival, and families and peers really enjoy being greeted by our scholars to start the day. This year, we've also implemented breakfast in the classroom and a new social emotional curriculum called Purposeful People to further strengthen our classroom communities. We regularly monitor our school climate through panorama survey data, attendance, and behavior data so we can continue improving the experience for all students at Nautilus. In academics, we've been focusing on strengthening core instruction across our classrooms. In math, we are seeing more opportunities for students to explain their thinking and to use models and manipulatives to demonstrate their understanding. In ELA, students are developing stronger writing skills and are learning to support their ideas with evidence from texts. Across subjects, we are also emphasizing student discourse, giving scholars opportunities to discuss ideas, collaborate with peers, and actively engage in their learning. We're encouraged to see positive mid-year growth in both reading and math. Compared to last winter, we have 5% more scholars meeting grade level expectations in reading and 4% more in math. These graphics also show that across grades K through 8, our median progress towards annual typical growth is already above the halfway point in both content areas, indicating that scholars have made more than a half year's progress by the mid-year mark. This progress truly reflects the work that we've been focusing on school-wide, strengthening Tier 1 instruction, emphasizing student discourse and explanation in math, and further emphasizing writing and elaboration in literacy. Our intervention and enrichment blocks also allow us to provide targeted support based on student data. We're so proud of the progress our scholars are making and will continue building on this work throughout the spring. Family partnership is incredibly important to us at Nautilus. Through our parent advisory and other engagement opportunities, we hear that families value strong communication with the school and really want to feel connected to their child's learning. Families also emphasize the importance of both academic support and a strong sense of belonging for students. In response, we are continuing to strengthen our communication with families and share ways that they can support learning at home. For example, we help families understand their scholars' iReady goals and what it means to be on grade level in reading and math. We also share M-Class home resources so families know exactly how to support their child's reading based on current data. As we move into spring, we're also excited for our annual Multicultural Night, which brings our community together and includes partnerships with scholars and clubs from Federal Way High School. We also believe in hearing directly from students. Through Scholar Advisory, students share their feedback about learning experiences and school climate. One theme we consistently hear is that students appreciate clear expectations and engaging lessons, and they value opportunities to collaborate and share their thinking. We use this feedback to guide instructional improvement, particularly by creating more opportunities for scholar discourse in the classroom, explanation, and active engagement in learning. Tonight, you'll be hearing samples of narrative writing from scholars in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 6th grade. These examples demonstrate how our focus on elaboration in writing grows across our K-8 program, from adding details in early grades to developing more complex narratives with dialogue, pacing, and reflection in middle school. This vertical progression is so important to us because it helps students build skills year after year, while it helps our teachers have a shared understanding of what strong writing looks like at each grade level. That alignment strengthens both the quality of instruction and, more importantly, the learning experience for each child at Nautilus K-8. As you listen, notice how our scholars add details, dialogue, and reflection to develop their stories. These are skills that we intentionally build from elementary through middle school. First, you'll be hearing from 2nd grader Catalea as she shares her narrative, The Day I Met Danny. Spoiler alert, Danny is actually in the audience tonight, which I found very special. And I'm so excited for Catalea to share more with you about the first time she met her baby cousin.
first. I was just lucky. It was just my silly brain. Are you okay? Said my mom. Yeah, I guess, I said. I almost had a heart attack. I also started feeling sleepy, and I was also scared if he wouldn't like me. So I asked my mom, will he love me? Of course he would, said my mom. So I trusted her.
Thank you for sharing part of your story, Catalea. Up next, we have third grader Navira, who will be sharing part of her narrative, which is called Donuts and Holes. Listen to find out what donuts and holes mean in her family.
After a few minutes, we both jumped into bed. I looked out the window, the sky now darker than before. Sanj, hide under the covers until Mom and Dad come. I'll tell them you disappeared. I proposed. Okay, Sanj responded. We waited for a long time. Then I heard footsteps thumping on the stairs. Thump, thump. Finally, I thought, it was time for donuts and holes. Did Sanj hit the sack early? My mom asked mid-yawn. Sanj chuckled softly. I found you, my dad said happily. We all got into Sanj's bed. I yawned. It was time for donuts and holes. My hole is right now, and sorry for interrupting, but Sanj, do you not like right now? I asked my sister with a surprised expression. I do, she said. So then it's a donut. Holes are the bad things about your day, and donuts are the good things about your day, I reminded Sanj. Oh, my donut is right now. We each took turns sharing our donuts and holes. To this day, me and my family look forward to donuts and holes every night.
Thank you, Navira, for sharing about such a special nightly tradition in your family. Finally, we'll be hearing from sixth grader Moses, who will be sharing the opening of his story called The Night My Life Changed.
The night my life changed. I was just an ordinary kid. School, homework, and basketball at the old court behind the grocery store. I lived with my mother in a small apartment that always smelled like coffee and fresh laundry. We didn't have much, but we had enough. On weekends, Uncle Aaron would visit with a bag full of snacks and always a new story to tell. He was the kind of uncle that every kid wanted. Loud laugh, warm smile, and pockets full of surprises. He used to say that I reminded him of himself when he was young, curious, and stubborn, and always getting into things I probably shouldn't have. I liked that. I wanted to be him someday. Brave, confident, and someone people in a wedding noticed into a room. Everything felt stable, predictable, and safe. But all stories have a moment where the ground shifts beneath your feet, where the life you thought you knew cracked open. For me, it happened late one rainy Thursday night when my uncle didn't come home. The hospital call came just past midnight, and that's when my real story began.
Thank you so much, Moses, for sharing such a powerful opening to your narrative. Quick moment to give our scholars one more round of applause for sharing their writing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share more about the great learning happening at Nautilus K-8.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very impressive writing and reading by those young scholars. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, speaking of young scholars, is good news announcement. Director Gollings.
All right, we're proud to recognize the Federal Way High School Air Force JROTC, the 52nd Eagle Squadron. Hey, if you'd come on up, please. Okay. During their annual Air Force Junior ROTC unit assessment, the 52nd Eagle Squadron earned top marks, achieving a perfect score of 100, the highest possible rating of exceeds standards. Under the guidance of Major Retired John David Gassa and Chief Master Sergeant Retired Jacob Davidson, cadets demonstrated exceptional leadership, active participation, and dedication to community service. Evaluators were impressed by the strength of the cadet-led program and the pride students take in representing their school and community. Congratulations to the 52nd Eagle Squadron on earning top marks and continuing a tradition of excellence. Good job. Okay. We are proud to recognize our outstanding cheer teams from Decatur High School, Todd Beamer High School, and Federal Way High School for their If you are here this evening, please come forward to be recognized. Awesome. Great. Decatur High School earned first place in the game day small category and second place in the non-tumbling small category. Great. An outstanding accomplishment at the state level. Todd Beamer High School captured first place in the stomp category. Yeah. And Federal Way High School delivered a strong performance, earning third place in stomp. Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay, we're proud to recognize the Todd Beamer High School girls flag football team for an outstanding team season. They advanced to the state girls flag football championships. Students and coaches, come on up. Mhm. Competing at this level places these students among the top programs in Washington State and is a testament to the hard work of the students and coaching staff throughout the season. These students represented Todd Beamer High School and Federal Way Public Schools with determination and pride. Congratulations on a remarkable season. Okay. We are proud to recognize our Federal Way Public Schools DECA scholars for an outstanding season. Students and staff, if you're here, please come forward to be recognized. Yes. Students from all four of our comprehensive high schools competed at the DECA Area Conference, placing in the top 10 in their events to advance to the State Career Development Conference. At Washington's DECA State Career Development Conference, 71 of our students competed among more than 6,000 students statewide, showcasing their skills in business, marketing, finance, hospitality, and entrepreneurship through rigorous real-world competitive events. We are thrilled to share that 20 of our students have qualified for the DECA International Career Development Conference this April in Atlanta, Georgia. Congratulations. Congratulations. All right, that's all. Oh. No, that's the last one. Well done. One more round of applause for all our scholars.
Very impressive, these young scholars. Next item on the agenda is legislative update, Director Phillips.
Good evening, everyone. I was going to see if Dr. Pfeiffer would help me out on this one. The only major one that I know. Yeah, we're at the end of session. We're almost done here. Yeah, I'll let Dr. Pfeiffer. Dr. Pfeiffer, will you go ahead?
Certainly, we are nearing the end of the legislative window, which comes on Friday. Before the Senate and the House, they're still finalizing their final recommendations to the governor. For Federal Public Schools, the one that will give us the most pain, I think, and create significant impact is our local effort assistance. Last year, our legislators put into play an enhancement factor to more equitably align to per pupil districts, as I've shared before. And right now, that is on potentially being reduced or eliminated, and it would significantly impact Federal Public Schools as other local school districts that rely on local effort assistance. And if you remember, local effort assistance many years ago was put into place to more equitably fund school districts that were situated in areas that did not have the density of industrial, commercial, or residential properties related to their tax base. So in its first year, it would reduce what was in place from $9 million to $400,000. So we're talking about a significant reduction in overall funding. And I'd like to recognize our representatives as well as our senator out of the 30th who tried to propose different bills for Federal Public Schools for a fix. I'd also like to recognize our partners, FWPS, and their efforts related to advocacy, knowing that this will impact Federal Way if they go forward with the Senate's budget currently. And so we'll continue to, I've been on an email trail. Anybody that will respond to our emails, we're providing them with data. I'm also part of the UW SOUPS group for more equitable funding, and we have also done quite an email campaign as well as reaching out to our local representatives. So more to come on Friday evening, I imagine at 11:59 p.m. So we'll know more, and I'll be able to update with you later this month.
Thank you for that update. Next item on the agenda is Executive Limitation 1, Human Resources Presentation. Dr. Pfeiffer.
Yes, thank you, board team. As you're aware, the board sets as well as executive limitations as part of my monitoring and compliance. Annually, these are reported out to you. This evening, we have prepared for you the interpretation and compliance of Executive Limitations 1, which relates to human resources with 5 supporting components. This evening, our Chief of Human Resources, Diane Ellis, will provide this presentation to you on my behalf. Diane.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Jones, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Danny Pfeiffer, and student representative to the board. I am pleased to be able to have the opportunity to share our work around Executive Limitation 1, Human Resources this evening. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide the interpretation and evidence of Executive Limitations 1, reflective of the 24-25 school year up to the current date. Executive Limitations 1, Human Resources, is comprised of 5 different sub-limitations that define it. EL1A, Expectations of the Superintendent. EL1B, Organizational Continuity and Executive Succession. EL1C, Staff Relations. EL1D, Staff Compensation. And EL1E, Staff Evaluations. While EL1 is human resources centered, it is important to note that it is truly reflective of cross-departmental collaboration. This includes work between Human Resources and Business Services, Teaching for Learning, the Office of Equity, and the Office of the Superintendent. The work of EL1 is tied directly to our strategic plan and the 4 pillars, particularly Pillar 3, which is effective, caring, culturally competent teachers, leaders, and staff, which is the pillar that lays the foundation for our work in investing in people. I will now share the new initiatives and ongoing work around EL1A, expectations of the superintendent. This sublimitation addresses expectations for the ethical practice of the superintendent and states that the superintendent shall not cause, allow, or fail to prevent any practice, activity, decision, condition, procedure, or organizational circumstance, which is imprudent, unlawful, or unethical, in violation of commonly accepted business and professional ethics, in violation of board values and policies, in violation of contracts, including collective bargaining agreements, leaves the organization unprepared for emergency situations, and could be a conflict of interest. The district must have policies, procedures, and processes in place to protect the district from unlawful or unethical behavior by any of its employees. Listed here are some key initiatives that support lawful and ethical practices under big buckets of compliance and work around harassment, intimidation, and bullying, or HIB. To highlight a few, we have continued our work with our HIB compliance officer, streamlining the HIB referral to civil rights and Title IX processes, and continue to triage all incoming HIB reports. Additionally, we have updated staff training on boundary invasion and non-discrimination. Further, we continue to maintain compliance records in Human Resources, monitor support plans for all teachers teaching out of endorsement, and review policy with all new employees. Finally, we are developing an investigations operations manual to ensure consistency and compliance across the system. Continuing on, I will speak to our work towards EL1B, organizational continuity and executive succession. This is the sublimitation that ensures that administrative personnel have been identified who could immediately step in to manage essential functions of the superintendent's office in the case our superintendent were unable to. Administrative personnel have been identified who would immediately step in to manage essential functions of the superintendent's office in the very unlikely event that that were necessary. Members of the superintendent's cabinet and leadership team receive training, professional development during cabinet and leadership team meetings that build our leadership capacity and support the implementation of our protocols. EL1C is the sublimitation that embodies staff relations. This sublimitation addresses the creation of a safe and civil working environment for staff, as well as addressing the recruitment of a diverse, culturally responsive workforce that views Federal Way Public Schools as an excellent place to work. In this sublimitation, there is an emphasis placed upon recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce that represents our scholars and greater community. We are especially proud of the work we have done under Dr. Pfeiffer's leadership to build our pipelines to certification. This includes our partnership with FWEA and WEA in the special education apprenticeship, where our 4th cohort began in January. Our pipeline partnership with Highline College and Puget Sound ESD has launched with paraeducators beginning in their journey towards K-8 certification this year. And we are a featured partner or bright spot with Puget Sound ESD, recognized for our work with our educators of color leadership community. And additionally, we've continued our Federal Way Public School Leadership Academy, Federal Way Public Schools New Leaders, and Best Mentorship Program. While we have continued our efforts to right-size the district due to tight budget constraints, we have also continued our recruiting efforts for certificated staff, as we know we will have some positions to fill for the upcoming school year, especially in hard-to-fill areas of special education, dual language, Spanish, and multilingual education. We continue to attend certificated recruiting events, including panels at the University of Puget Sound, Seattle Pacific University, and the University of Washington for their secondary teacher education program. In April, we will attend the annual WASPA, Washington School Personnel Association, fair in Tacoma. And additionally, we've held classified hiring fairs July, August, and October, with 2 to 3 more coming this spring and summer. I'll highlight now this WEA Special Education Residency Apprenticeship Program here. This collaborative effort serves to grow and retain our strong and diverse special education teacher workforce in alignment with Pillar 3, with a goal in recruiting a diverse cohort of residents to serve in the program. Our very first cohort is now in their second year of teaching, and cohort 4 is in their first rotation as a paraeducator. We are pleased to share that there will be cohort 5 with that application process coming soon. I'm also proud to share that our FWPS Leadership Academy is continuing stronger than ever. This is our leadership development program that seeks to elevate our own diverse leadership from within our own staff. This program engages aspiring leaders in a series of professional development sessions around leadership topics designed to support their readiness in the future to lead. This series concludes with practice interviews as well for their targeted support. Highlighted here is our Educator of Color Leadership Community, or ECLC. In service of retention, this community of certificated educators of color comes together multiple times per year to build connection and support. FWPS is a featured partner with Puget Sound ESD in this work, supporting other districts as they seek to develop their own programming. We work to create and maintain multiple spaces for our educators of color to build stronger connections, develop our own systemic professional learning, recognition, and advancement opportunities for our educators and leaders of color, while developing safe spaces and a space of inclusivity. Another means to supporting EL1C staff relations is in the provision of professional development that serves to move district initiatives forward and build capacity within our staff. This work started this summer with our 4+1 days, and should say continued this summer with our 4+1 days and Welcome to Federal Way Institute, as well as department program retreats. This past summer learning focused on learning to maximize the impact of our middle school master schedule changes through intervention, math and writing interventions and supports, as well as standard-based grading. Throughout the year, we have a comprehensive professional development plan focused on district initiatives of MTSS Tiers 1 and 2, writing across the curriculum, and sheltered instruction observation protocols, or SIOP, to support our multilingual learners. We have a goal of a retention rate of 85%, and as you can see, for the past 5 years, we have consistently met this goal. For the past 5 years, we have seen a trend of steady increase in our retention rates, with the retention rate this year hitting 93%. Taking a look at the demographics of our staff, you'll note that across all but one of our non-white racial subgroups, we exceed the state percentages for demographic makeup. The exception for this past year was in the American Indian Alaskan Native category, which fluctuates due to a small N size. The outperforming of the state is the most notable in our Black, Asian, and 2 or more races demographics, with our Black African American group at 5.5% above state average, Asian at 5.2% above state average, and our staff who identify as 2 or more races as 4% above state average. 2 years ago, our Hispanic demographic was below the state average, but this year we surpassed by 3.5%. We will continue to concentrate our efforts to recruit, hire, and retain a diverse workforce that represents our community. Efforts like our partnership with the WEA residency program, the ECLC, and the roadmap regions are examples of our work in this area. Continuing on with sublimitation 1D, I will now speak to staff compensation. This sublimitation addresses the fair and competitive compensation structure that supports the attraction and retention of high-quality staff into Federal Way Public Schools. Staff compensation this year is aligned to the collective bargaining agreements and maintains a continued focus on market midpoint. In the past year, we completed 4 successful full bargains, including all 3 PSE groups, completed the MOU with family liaisons, and will be beginning bargaining with our FWEA coaches this spring. We do continue to right-size our staffing in the face of funding challenges. And the last sublimitation, 1D, addresses staff evaluations, specifically the systems and structures that ensure that staff are engaged in a performance evaluation process that is accurate, fair and consistent, and designed to build the capacity of staff with a growth mindset model. As we consistently review our evaluation processes and tools, This past year, we have been developing our evaluation tools for our deans of students, and we'll be building our evaluation tool for our family liaisons upon completed revision of the job description. We have also been supporting the implementation of our student growth goals through PLCs and backwards planning. Thank you so much. That's my presentation of EL1. Do I have any questions?
Thank you so much for that presentation. Board members, are there any questions?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. It's always great to see that our teachers stay. I always mention that, every now and then that obviously this is a great place to work. And when they stay, that just speaks to that. And continuing on with new programs that, we were thinking that maybe we can't afford, but somehow the district keeps finding ways to make things happen. So I'm excited to see that we're going to have that 5th cohort of special education students, so to speak. And because we thought we weren't going to have that, I think at one point, we weren't sure. So I'm glad we were able to do that. So this is great. It's good information. Thanks.
Other questions or comments? I also want to mention that it's really impressive that we're in the 4th cohort of that special education WEA partnership to grow from within and to make sure that we have people continually, entering those really important professions. And the paraeducator pipeline as well is a very important role that makes it possible to do all the things we want our schools to do. And also very important that beginning the pipeline for paraeducators to become certificated teachers. That's so important, not to have people in a job where there's no opportunity for advancement. So that's very important and very impressive to see. And also it's impressive that we have a retention rate of over 85% of people who are continuing to work in the district. And I was just mentioning to someone that it's very good to see people moving up within their positions and staying in the district and becoming an administrator or somebody in a higher level position, because they have that institutional memory that's so important to making sure that we have that continuity in terms of staff. So very, very good to see. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is budget update presentation. Dr. Pfeiffer.
Thank you so much. Board team, last week during our work study, you were provided a budget update as we settle into spring. Our budget landscape is still emerging, as I just shared, as we wait for our legislative session to come to a close with possible impacts of some of the decisions that they're going to be making, like our local effort assistance, transitional kindergarten, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to acknowledge and once again thank our community for their support for our EPNO levy, which is now emerging as more important than ever before. So as given what we're potentially facing. So this local funding plays a more critical role. And I would just want to thank them. Our Chief Finance Officer, Rob Bryant, will provide this update to you on my behalf. And I'd also like to recognize our Executive Director, Jerry Carlson. She is closing out her days. We are going to get her for this evening and one more board, as then she gets to go into retirement. So I do want to acknowledge her and the team for their amazing work in the Business Services Department.
Okay, great. Good evening, Board President Dr. Jones, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Pfeiffer. Tonight, I will be presenting an update on the general fund budget. This will include connecting enrollment trends and state funding conditions to our current financial picture. So we will start with birth and enrollment trends, then the financials, which will include revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. Then we will shift to budget challenges, followed by legislative activity, actions that we've already taken, and local levy support. And then finally, we will wrap up with our timelines for the 26-27 budget planning. As a reminder, our budget is in direct support of the 5 goals outlined in the strategic plan. And in addition, the district budget is a central component of Executive Limitation 3, which is a financial and asset protection. All right, beginning with enrollment. So we are first going to look at birth and enrollment trends, starting with Washington State birth rates. So each bar on this chart represents the average birth rates per 1,000 people in Washington State for each decade dating back to the 1950s. You can see the birth rates have been declining over time with a sustained downward trend. And as you can see, the 2020 years reflect the lowest level of birth rates in 70+ years. While the statewide historical trends are important for us to be aware of, our focus is primarily on what's happening regionally and locally. When we look at the data reflecting King County births, we can see a declining trend as well. In this set of data showing King County births dating back to 2012, we can see that the births peaked in 2016 and have steadily declined since then. This indicates the structural demographic shifts, which strongly influences kindergarten cohorts. And please note that the births which occurred in 2021 will represent the incoming kindergarten class. Okay, moving from the births to school enrollment trends. You can see the countywide enrollment for King County shows a slight but consistent downward trend since the pre-COVID years. And as we know, COVID disruptions in 2020 caused a clear drop, and recovery has been slow, with nearly all school districts still below pre-pandemic levels. Federal Way Public Schools enrollment data mirrors these broader regional trends. When we focus on Federal Way Public Schools kindergarten cohort data, we can see that Federal Way Public Schools kindergarten trends mirror the state and the county, that the decline is gradual but consistent and aligns with the falling birth rates, that the 2020 anomaly reflects the pandemic impacts, and as you look at the projections for 26, 27, they continue this gradual downward pattern. As we look at this chart, it shows the total district enrollment. And please recall that we use our anticipated October headcount projections as the basis for budgeted staffing allocations. On this slide, there are a few things to take note of. Overall, you can see that enrollment is projected to decline by about 410 students next fall, which is roughly about a 1.9% decrease. One caveat with this, just please remember these are preliminary numbers, so they still may be worked a little bit. Projections reflect a roll forward of the current February enrollment, a smaller kindergarten cohort, and the standard adjustments in grades 11 and 12 for running start enrollment. The projections are slightly below our demographers' low forecast, and they continue to show how broader demographic forces persist and continue to shape the enrollment both locally, regionally, and statewide. Headcount enrollment translates directly into average annual full-time equivalent, or AAFTE, and this is the driver of our state funding. As a quick refresher, full-time equivalent is basically a method of calculating student enrollment based on full-time participation. A student attending all year long equals 1.0 FTE, while a student attending only half the year would equal approximately a half a FTE. And the average FTE calculated over the course of the school year reflects the fluctuations in enrollment and attendance over time. Approximately for every 100 students, we receive about $1.1 million in state funding. And the other thing to note is that our 25-26 school year AAFTE numbers through February are about 150 below that number which was budgeted. And our preliminary 26-27 AAFTE projections call for about a 2.3% decrease from what we budgeted for 25-26. Okay, next, when we shift to connecting enrollment to our funding, you'll see in this slide that the 24-25 budgeted and actual revenue and expenditure data, and you'll also see the 25-26 budgeted amounts. As the data indicates, 24-25 actuals outperform budget, as is generally the case due to our conservative budgeting practices. If you look at the 24-25 budget column, we budget for our expenditures to exceed our revenues by $26 million, whereas we experienced an actual drawdown of only $6 million, as can be seen in the 24-25 actuals column. And as we have covered in the past, we budget with the anticipation that all of our staff positions will be filled 100% of the time, when in reality, we know this doesn't always happen with every position. The other significant factor contributing to the reduced $6 million drawdown was the deliberate budget tightening and right-sizing efforts that were implemented throughout the year. As we shift to the 25-26 budget column, the budgeted expenditures exceed budgeted revenues by $13 million. Again, this is in line with how we budget. And another thing to note is that on this chart, that both the revenue and expenditure budget columns include capacity contingency that is built into the budget. For 24-25, we built in $8 million, and for 25-26, $10 million. This is a standard practice which allows us the ability to accept and spend grant funding or other unexpected funding that may become available after the budget is adopted without delaying services or programs. Okay, the data on this chart dives into the budget utilization trends, showing the percent of actuals to budget, both for the revenues, which are in the blue chart, and expenditures, which are in the yellow chart. The revenues generally remain steady and predictable, coming in right around 100% of budget. The expenditures typically run below full utilization, which reflect the disciplined and conservative budgeting practices that have helped protect the district's financial position. Recent years, we have inched closer to the 100% mark, due in part to tighter budgets, rising costs, and a stabilizing labor market. It just reinforces the importance of disciplined, conservative budgeting. This chart shows how our revenues and expenditures have tracked over the past 9 years, as well as what was budgeted for 25-26. The revenues are represented by the blue line, and the expenditures are represented by the yellow line. You can see that since 2022, our expenditures have grown faster than our revenues, which is creating a structural gap, resulting in a drawdown of our fund balance reserves. We have used our reserves strategically to maintain core academic and operations programs and to provide stability for our schools. And at the same time, we've implemented reductions and efficiencies to shrink the gap. Going forward, continued monitoring and discipline will be necessary to protect our reserves and support long-term sustainability. Looking at fund balance, this slide helps round out the full financial picture by showing how our ending fund balance has moved over the last several years. Our fund balance peaked in 2021-22 because of the influx of the one-time ESSER monies and state stabilization funds. These one-time funds have expired, and at the same time, our costs have continued to rise at a much faster pace than our revenues. And as a result, our revenues have trended down, even with the reductions in the careful spending. We do expect to finish this year above the budgeted level and still within the policy limits. A similar slide as the previous can be seen on this chart. However, this is broken down by the different components of fund balance. The unassigned to minimum fund balance is in the dark blue. Restricted and other is in yellow, which is for things like inventory and categorical revenues that are carried over. And unassigned is in teal, which represents the more flexible amounts that are not tied to any specific purposes or restrictions. Policy 6024 requires maintaining 3 to 5% of our expenditures in the unassigned to minimum fund balance reserves category, which is that dark portion of the bars. We remain within that range, but the amount of flexible unassigned fund balance, which is that teal portion of the bars, has been shrinking since 2021-22. And again, looking ahead and to ensure we stay within policy limits, that will require that we continue to closely monitor our expenditures, pursue available revenue solutions, and keep staffing aligned and right-sized to enrollment. With the financial picture in view, the primary drivers of our structural gap and the challenges that are being faced by many school districts as well include such things as the declining enrollment trends, the declining share of the state K-12 resources, state underfunding of special education, material supplies and operating costs, or MSOC, and transportation. The state prototypical school funding model not aligning with the costs of what it takes to actually run a school district, state funding inequities, including regionalization, local levies, and local effort assistance, state funding reductions that we are expecting out of this current legislative session, rising costs and inflationary pressures, and honoring the commitments of our collective bargaining agreements. Knowing some of the major budget challenges facing Federal Way Public Schools, as well as the local and statewide, let's take a closer look at what's happening right now in Olympia. These legislative actions will directly influence our funding outlook and the decisions that we will need to make moving forward. If you recall the McCleary case, there was a family that sued the state in 2007. In 2012, the court said that the state must fully fund K-12. And by 2019, the court declared that the legislature had met its paramount duty. That marked the peak of K-12 funding. Since then, the share of the state budget for K-12 has fallen from about 52% to around 43%, while inflation and costs have outpaced allocations. Districts are absorbing rising operating costs. A good example of this is our property and liability insurance alone is adding tens of millions of dollars statewide across every school district across each year, and eroding purchasing power and widening the structural gap. And despite McCleary-era gains, today's funding is not keeping pace with real costs. In fact, when adjusted for inflation, the funding per student has dropped by about $250 compared to the peak in 2019. This slide represents a few key areas where we have realized substantial funding gaps over time. The bar charts on this slide represent the three largest underfunded areas that we face and the associated widening gaps for special education, MSOC, and transportation. Since 2021-22, these combined funding gaps have cost Federal Way Public Schools nearly $60 million. These are all essential services required for our students, yet the state funding formulas do not fund the actual costs for operating them. A real-time example is for our MSOC funding. The state will be increasing MSOC funding by about 2.6% next year, which gives us roughly $800,000 in new funding. But just for one line item alone, our property and liability insurance, that is projected to increase by 18% or $1.4 million, essentially wiping out the MSOC increase before we even consider other rising costs for such things as utilities, fuel, curriculum, other supplies, and other essential materials. Again, those state allocation formulas are just not keeping pace with real world costs. With that broader context in mind, thinking about the specific state reductions and how they would directly affect Federal Way Public Schools coming out of this legislative session, a potential rollback to local effort assistance that was passed last session is the first one. This is fundamentally about equity and fairness in Washington's funding system. Reductions shift more financial strain onto districts that already have less local property wealth. The impacts to Federal Way Public Schools of the current legislative proposals range from $2.1 million to $5.2 million of reduced funding, and in some cases we've seen even higher amounts. Next is a reduction in transition to kindergarten or TTK slots and funding. Fewer seats means fewer opportunities for students who need structured early support before entering K-12. Reducing the capacity in TTK disproportionately impacts students furthest from the opportunities. Impacts to Federal Way Public Schools of the current legislative proposals, we would see a loss of approximately 27 slots representing 400,000. And the last one is extending the bus depreciation out, which directly impacts our funding, and is tied to the purchase of new buses. Delaying bus replacement cost does not eliminate the cost, it just defers them and often increases maintenance expenses. The impacts to Federal Way Public Schools that we're estimating is approximately 500,000. Given the declining enrollment and the state funding challenges, Federal Way Public Schools has responded by proactively making budget reductions in the central office and in school building budgets and right-sizing staff whenever possible. Under Dr. Pfeiffer's leadership, $13 million of reductions have been implemented over the last 3 years, along with the transition through the sunsetting of the federal pandemic relief funds, or those ESSER funds. And while we do face significant ongoing state funding challenges, it is fitting that we end on a positive note. The recent passage of our EP&O levy provides critical stability for our schools. We are incredibly grateful to our voters for their continued support. This support reflects the values that the community places on our students and our schools, and we do not take that for granted. The EP&O levy helps us fund areas that the state does not fully support or fund. It's not a bonus, it is essential. Without it, many of our core services would simply not be sustainable at our current levels. So thank you again to our voters for their continued support. And then looking ahead, key milestones for developing the 26-27 budget include finishing up our enrollment projections, and then we'll be shifting in March and early April to our school staffing allocations. April, we'll be developing our department budgets, and April through May, we'll be refining our budget targets. June 2nd, we'll be presenting to the board at the board work study with a preliminary budget, and that will be followed up on June 9th at the board meeting with additional budgets. And then the budget adoption will occur on August 25th. And thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation, the second or of many. Any questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I have one, too. On page 17, you talked about the 52% in the year 2019-21. And then we went down to 42. So when was the McClurry? What year was that?
Okay. Yeah, so the McCleary actually sued the state in 2007, and 2012 is when the court said they must fully fund K-12. And then by 2019, that's when the legislature indicated that the state had met its duty and that they had basically solved their problem.
So they felt 52% was appropriate and that was good. They were happy with that, correct?
Well, I don't know if they were looking at it necessarily that way, but they felt like what the courts were requiring.
So I
had
don't
been met.
understand how we could drop down that 10%. I mean, what's the explanation? Whose shoes do we go step on?
Yeah.
Well, the reduced funding are decisions that are being made in our local state government. So we only have so big of a pie, and the needs of Washington State, we have other needs in addition to public education. And so that slice continues to get smaller and smaller in the investment in public education. And for sure, right now, they are not fulfilling their paramount duty. I mean, you could see a reduction of 10% investment in pre-K 12 education funding. So it's the decisions that are being made at the legislative level.
So they're prioritizing other things rather than education, which is their primary responsibility for
I want to be
future
careful.
citizens.
I want to be careful because I do know our local legislators, many of
Yeah.
which have had children in our school district, do prioritize K-12 funding. But I think at large,
At
our
large,
state,
yeah.
right, our legislators collectively are having to make difficult decisions at the state level, and they're putting funds that should be placed in public education to the variety of needs that we have in Washington State. So yes, they are not fulfilling their paramount duty.
And then one more question. Oops. Okay, we mentioned something about liability taxes going up. But that was a big jump. Is there a reasoning for that?
Well,
Insurance,
there's a
I thought you were
variety,
talking about
there are a
insurance.
variety of reasons. All 295 districts or apportionment of those 295 that use the Washington State Risk Management Pool for their insurance coverage recently got communication, just like we do sometimes when we're like, I didn't even have an accident in my car, but yet my rates are going. It's the same idea in insurance coverage for school districts. Sometimes your claims can actually be reduced from year to year, and yet you still have an increase in your overall rates because we don't have a cap on tort claims in Washington State. So you're seeing over the state an increase in tort claims in public education, which I'm happy to brief all of you on at a work study at a later date. But all of us that have Washington State Risk Management Pool, they did give us a little email that said your rates are increasing by 18%. And you have to remember, our rates have already increased over 200% in the last 5 years. So when people go and say, we're fully funding public education, we are not fully funding public education. And the slide that goes directly after this with the bar graph, you can see, and that's just in 3 categories: special education, material supply and operating costs, and transportation. $60 million they have underfunded. Federal Public Schools and other districts, all the districts across the state have similar bar graphs.
I want to say also that kind of connecting this slide that we're looking at to our levy funds, some of the things that we are mandated by law to fund are not being sufficiently funded. So special education and so on, I mean, we have to provide those services regardless of what it costs the district, and that's where it's really vital and very important. And we are very grateful to have the EPNO levy funds available, because we have to provide those services to our young people, and we're not being funded for those, but we have to, by law, we're required to provide those. So
they'll tell you that the EPNO, they would like for us to call it enrichment levy. So enrichment is like frosting, right? But we're using our funds for the cake, right? And that's how we like to think about it. And when we say that it's essential programming, from the state's perspective, we should be calling it enrichment funding, and it's funding basic education. So our local taxpayers are helping to fund local, like our education of our youth, that should be the paramount duty and investment across the state. Yeah.
Maybe though in some districts that because they get more money, it then becomes enrichment because they are adequately funded, because they have that greater tax base, which seems so inequitable that we are, as we've expressed once before.
Don't get
It's
me
very-
started. You know how I could go
Yeah,
on and
I know.
on.
I'm trying not to push your buttons.
This is like a passion project for me, because I think it is inequitable, it is unfair, and it's a disservice to our community, and most importantly, our youth that attend our schools. Period. Mic drop. End of discussion. And until we really investigate the funding model, the prototypical funding model in Washington state, and look at something that we are one of the only states that is still holding out for a weighted student funding model. States across the United States have gone to weighted student funding. We're one of the only states that continues to not do that. This, coupled with regionalization and the fact that we are not a property wealthy district, puts us behind. We're not even at the starting line. Think about it like we're not even at the starting line. We're behind the starting line. So it's inequitable for our young people that, you know, and our families that give us their most prized possessions. And so we have to stand up and we have to advocate. And that's one of the reasons that I am part of the UW SUPS group, which is really pushing on our legislators to do something different and examine our educational funding model.
Yeah. I just was a little lost on what unassigned flexible balance is, what that's all about.
All right, hang on, let me get to that slide. 14. Yes, so basically, the fund balance is broken into several different categories. Hang on, let me find my notes. Okay, so essentially, you know, you would have total fund balance, which is basically the savings account, right? And that savings account is broken into several different categories. So the unassigned to minimum fund balance is the portion that board policy refers to. That's what we have to maintain in that 3 to 5% range. And that's what you can see in the blue bars there. And then we have a part of it, which is called restricted and other, part of that savings account. That has to be set aside for things that are basically that we don't have any flexibility on, like inventory management and carryover or categorical revenues that must be carried over. And then the unassigned, which is that teal portion, that's the flexible part of the savings account that we can use for things that the board may designate that it needs to be. And so that
Or
needs to be used.
to offset operational costs that we no longer have. That's our drawdown. So you see it's teal in 21-22, we had a surplus of, we have 7%. And so since 21-22, we've been drawing down that teal portion, right, to offset the difference between expenditures and revenues.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
and that
never
eliminates
noticed
that
yeah.
flexible portion. of-
Okay. It's to me, when it was called unassigned, now I know exactly what you're talking about, but I just never heard it referred to as unassigned flexible. Yeah, yeah. I was like, unassigned, okay. So the other thing is, of course, you're real thorough with this report. So, and each time that we receive the report, it's more understandable, with the charts and everything. So I appreciate that. And the descriptions of everything that you say, you're giving us all the information that we need. I mean, you can't put it all on here, but it does include a lot more than what, we used to have a long time ago. So I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
If I can just mention real quick, looking at that chart, it looks like we're down to the bare bones, correct? Because we don't have that little turquoise teal section in there. That's flexible.
Down to the bare bones because we have an incredible business service team. And I think that our conservative budgeting process really has allowed us to avoid reductions in force.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't have as much to draw upon from our reserves standpoint. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. And we need to continue to tighten our belt. And if something really happens with local effort assistance, you're looking at approximately the possibility of reductions in force because we use our local effort assistance money for staffing. That's one of the things why we're really doing, from the rooftop call outs.
I would add real quick that the 25-26 numbers represent budget and not actuals. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we do typically outperform the budget.
Thank you for that presentation. Next item on the agenda is curriculum adoption presentation. Dr. Pfeiffer.
All right, the third one of the evening, final presentation this evening. In February, we brought to you our civics curriculum recommendation for adoption. We then provided a 3-week review window for the members of the school board to review the curriculum with supporting state standards. This evening, we'll do our final presentation to the board for our curriculum recommendation. I'm going to ask Dr. Melissa Spencer, our Chief Academic Officer, to begin this presentation with other members of our team. Dr. Spencer.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Davis, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Pfeiffer. Tonight, we'll be presenting our recommendation for the 12th grade civics adoption. Presenting with me tonight is Dr. Erica Rudnicki, the Executive Director of Scholar Learning, Academic Programs and Staff Development, and Amanda Christensen, Secondary Social Studies Facilitator. The purpose of this presentation is to share the rationale, process, and recommendations for the 12th grade civics curriculum. Through curriculum adoptions, we're committed to living out our vision of excellence and equity to ensure every scholar achieves their limitless potential. Part of that is ensuring we have core curriculum that supports teachers with culturally sustaining practices, such as presenting multiple perspectives, engaging in deep inquiry, and fostering collaboration. A guaranteed and viable curriculum promotes equity in instruction and resources across the system. Federal Way Public Schools has not had a civics curriculum adoption in over 30 years. A new adoption will bring our curriculum into alignment with Washington state legislation, revised state standards, and the National Social Studies Framework, C3, focused on college, career, and civic life. Senate Bill 5433 requires since time immemorial, or STI, which is a K-12 curriculum regarding Washington tribal history, to be integrated into all social studies instruction. And RCW 28A outlines specific learning objectives that must be taught within civics courses. OSPI built the Washington State Learning Standards using the C3 framework as the driver to support scholars to be able to read, write, and speak about all the content in a meaningful way, as well as become active, engaged citizens in the 21st century. The C3 framework stands for college, career, and civic life. The purpose of the C3 framework is to enhance the rigor of social studies as a content area while building critical thinking, problem solving, and participatory skills to become engaged citizens. The core dimensions of the C3 framework are developing questions and planning inquiry, applying disciplinary tools and concepts, evaluating sources and using evidence, and communicating conclusions and taking informed action. Through the adoption process, we've been able to ensure that all materials align to the C3 framework and Washington State learning standards. This slide provides an overview of social studies content for grades 6 through 12. The above statements are the high-level OSPI social studies course descriptions. All of these items were kept in the forefront of the committee and pilot work in order to meet requirements. OSPI has guidelines and goals for students for all social studies curriculum within the state. These are knowledge of history, geography, civics, and economics being fundamental to students' ability to understand the world around them. Inquiry should be centered in all instruction. Multiple perspectives should be present in all content. Students should see relevance of the curriculum and be able to connect to their identity. Diversity should be celebrated. Content should be both historical and contemporary, and curriculum should develop key skills. This slide shows examples of specific state standards mandated by OSPI that all 12th grade civics courses must incorporate and teach. Civic standards cover foundational documents, governmental structures at all levels, including tribal sovereignty, and active civic participation. Students learn how democracy works and how to engage as informed citizens. History standards develop analytical thinking through chronology, examining causal factors like conflict and technology, understanding multiple perspectives, and connecting past events to contemporary issues. Social studies skills standards provide the tools students need: critical reasoning, inquiry-based research, deliberating public issues through civil discourse, and creating evidence-based arguments for authentic audiences. These standards work together to create a comprehensive civic education. Dr. Rudnicki will now explain the process we used in alignment with our curriculum management plan.
In Federal Way Public Schools, our curriculum management plan defines the curriculum adoption process and aligns to our goals in the strategic plan. In the winter of 2025, we did some research on civics in other school districts. Many were due for an adoption, but didn't find anything that met their district's standard of equity, rigor, engagement, and cultural responsiveness. Research was conducted for open educational resources and curricula that would meet OSPI's expectations, as well as room for additional requirements. In spring 2025, we mapped out the adoption timeline and formed the committee. During our initial meeting, the team developed a common instructional vision for the work based on various expectations from OSPI and the state. I would like to acknowledge and thank the members of the adoption team, both during committee work and the pilot process. We had 9 teachers representing 5 schools. In addition, we had representation from the Office of Equity, Student Support Services, IT, TFL, and Multilingual Department. From the initial research, there were 4 curricula that the team reviewed and potentially pilot. Committee members analyzed the curricula using a comprehensive tool based on OSPI's rubric for quality social studies instruction, OSPI's bias screener, and Inquire Ed's C3 inquiry rubric. We conducted a comprehensive 3-phase review to ensure the highest quality adoption. Phase 1, initial screening. Multiple resources evaluated, including Constitution 101, iCivics, government and politics materials, documents of freedom, and others. In phase 2, we did a detailed review, narrowed down the top candidates, including Constitution 101, government and politics, National Center on Education and the Economy, EduCurious, and New York Civics for All. For phase 3, we did the pilot implementation. For New York Civics for All and EduCurious were selected to be piloted based on vendor presentations and the rubric evaluation. For quality assurance, this process ensures that we're adopting proven, effective materials that work in real classroom settings. We evaluated the 4 finalists against critical criteria. While all 4 met the basic civics RCW requirements, the differences became clear when we examined the depth and completeness. Only EduCurious and New York City Civics for All integrate the state mandated since time immemorial curriculum. The other 2 would require us to build those connections ourselves. Bill of Rights Institute and Constitution 101 show inconsistent C3 framework alignment, meaning significant teacher supplementation would be needed. The materials comparison is telling. EduCurious provides everything teachers need: comprehensive lesson plans, PowerPoints, student resources, teacher guides, and full Canvas integration. Constitution 101 only offers activity descriptions, essentially requiring teachers to build the curriculum from scratch. Most critically, EduCurious is the only curriculum explicitly aligned to the Washington state standards rather than national standards. This ensures our scholars learn exactly what they need for state assessments and graduation requirements. Using the rubrics as stated previously, the committee team began to analyze the 4 curricula to determine 2 to pilot. The rubric-based approach ensures our selection is based on educational merit, not subjective preferences. The scoring categories: inquiry-based instruction, how well materials promote student questioning and investigation; bias screener, culturally responsive, inclusive content that reflects diverse perspectives; standards assessment, alignment with state standards, instructional supports, teacher resources, and differentiation tools. EduCurious scored the highest in all categories, particularly excelling in inquiry-based instruction and cultural responsiveness. New York Civics for All had the next highest scores. These are the 2 curricula that were piloted based on team consensus. From September to December, we piloted 1 unit from each curricula. During the pilot, students and teachers completed surveys and at the end of each unit. We also conducted classroom visits to see the curricula in action and align to the C3 inquiry instructional shifts practice. Family and additional high school teachers also had the opportunities to learn about the curriculum and to complete a feedback survey. Dr. Spencer will now walk you through the feedback from stakeholders.
In all, we gathered feedback from about 790 people. In the following slides, you will be presented with the family responses from the Curriculum Family Review Night. The key message was our families value curriculum that develops both knowledge and practical civic engagement skills. Survey results show strong support, 71%, for a curriculum that helps students grow in both content understanding and practical civic skills. This indicates our families recognize that effective civics education must be both informative and actionable. The EduCurious curriculum achieves this balance by combining rigorous academic content with hands-on activities, simulations, and real-world applications that develop students' capacity for civic participation and democratic engagement. This testimonial from a Thomas Jefferson High School parent provides authentic evidence of the curriculum's effectiveness. The parent highlights how EduCurious helps students connect classroom learning to real-world applications, noting that their daughter comes home excited to discuss civic issues and understands how government and civic responsibilities function in everyday life. Most importantly, the parent emphasizes that the curriculum empowers students to believe they can make a difference and that their voice matters, a fundamental goal of civic education. This section presents findings from teachers who piloted both curriculum options during the evaluation period. These educators have direct classroom experience with both New York City Civics for All and EduCurious curricula, providing insight into their comparative effectiveness. The key message is that according to teacher feedback, EduCurious provides significantly more authentic intellectual challenge than the alternative curriculum. Teachers report that approximately 60% of students experienced highly authentic and appropriate rigorous intellectual challenge with EduCurious, while another 40% experienced authentic and appropriately rigorous challenge. Conversely, New York City Civics for All results show lower performance indicators, with roughly 80% of the students experiencing limited authenticity and rigor. This data demonstrates that EduCurious successfully provides the deep critical thinking opportunities that our community identified as priorities, while the alternative curriculum failed to meet these standards. The key message here is that data indicates EduCurious demonstrates superior effectiveness in developing essential civic skills across measured areas. The side-by-side comparison shows EduCurious consistently outperforming New York City Civics for All in developing crucial civic skills. EduCurious shows predominantly green, very effective, and blue, effective ratings across all skill areas, including civic engagement, thinking critically, understanding civics processes, analyzing multiple perspectives, evaluating sources, building consensus, taking informed action, and providing evidence with reasoning. This testimonial from a Federal Way High School teacher highlights EduCurious's clear instructional design with purposeful units tied to essential questions and main inquiries. The teacher specifically notes how students learn about their rights and apply them to real-life scenarios, helping them navigate civic systems and embody American values of freedom and liberty. 100% of the pilot teachers recommend EduCurious for district-wide adoption. After direct classroom experience with both curricula, every participating teacher recommends EduCurious for adoption. This final section presents survey results from students who experienced both curricula during the pilot period. Students report significantly higher engagement with EduCurious curriculum across all positive categories. The data reveals differences in student engagement between curricula. EduCurious shows approximately 23% of students highly engaged, compared to roughly 11% for New York City Civics for All. More significantly, EduCurious demonstrates about 50% students engaged, compared to approximately 28% for New York City Civics for All. In comparison, the pattern for Civics for All shows about 40% of students somewhat engaged and 22% not very engaged, while EduCurious shows much lower percentages in these categories. EduCurious provides more consistent opportunities for deep critical thinking about civics topics. Student responses show EduCurious delivering intellectual challenge, with approximately 25% reporting they almost always felt challenged to think deeply, and about 50% reporting often being challenged. In contrast, New York City Civics for All shows lower performance results, with roughly 41% of students reporting they were only sometimes challenged and 22% rarely challenged to think deeply. Students find EduCurious significantly more connected to their lived experiences and community context. The survey reveals that approximately 28% of EduCurious students felt very connected to real life, compared to roughly 10% for New York Civics for All. Additionally, about 40% of students reported feeling somewhat connected, compared to approximately 28% for New York City Civics for All. A notable difference is about 40% of the students in New York City Civics for All felt a little connected, and 23% felt not connected to their real lives. Students report stronger skill development across all civic competencies with the EduCurious curriculum. The comparative analysis shows students experienced more substantial growth in essential civic skills through EduCurious instruction. Key areas showing superior development include engaging in discourse, thinking critically, understanding government structures, analyzing multiple perspectives, evaluating sources, building consensus, taking informed action, and providing evidence-based reasoning. Student testimonials demonstrate the personal impact and practical value of the EduCurious curriculum. The first testimonial from a Todd Beamer High School scholar highlights how EduCurious connects learning to real-world applications, promotes inclusivity, and helps students see multiple perspectives on issues while empowering them to make a difference. The second testimonial from a Decatur scholar specifically mentions engaging activities like analyzing Supreme Court cases for constitutional interpretation, demonstrating both enjoyment and substantive learning. The final data point shows that almost 82% of students recommend EduCurious, compared to only 18.3% supporting New York City Civics for All. This strong student preference, representing the voices of those who directly experienced both curriculum, provides compelling evidence for decision-making. As a reminder, we evaluated 4 curriculum against our Washington State requirements for 12th grade civics. Our recommendation is to adopt the National Center on Education Economy EduCurious curriculum. Amanda will now share more details about the EduCurious 12th grade civics curriculum.
This slide provides a high-level overview of why the Adoption and Instructional Material Committees are recommending this curriculum. On the left is the alignment to the Washington State Learning Standards, alignment to the National C3 framework, and inquiry-driven, conceptually designed, and standards aligned. On the right, you will see how this curriculum supports students through developing understanding and application of disciplinary content knowledge, connects to the world beyond the classroom, and provides learning through informed action projects. EduCurious provides 3 comprehensive thematic units that address required civic standards. These units move beyond textbook learning to authentic civic engagement and real-world application. Unit 1, Foundations of U.S. Government, Constitutional Principles and Governmental Structures. Unit 2, Civil Liberties, Foundations of Individual Rights and Freedoms in a Democratic Society. And Unit 3, The Price of Democracy, Contemporary Challenges and Civic Responsibility. Along with these units being standards aligned with the C3 framework and Each have a summative assessment that is project-based learning with predictable evidence-based learning strategies, built-in assessment tools with rubrics and consistent evaluation, and multimedia resources integrated throughout. Each lesson provides a comprehensive support for both teachers and students. Teachers receive everything they need for successful implementation to support the increase of instructional quality. There is student and teacher-facing materials for every lesson, integrated reading, writing, and historical literacy skill development, embedded media elements and collaborative learning strategies, multiple perspective presentations for balanced instruction, seamless Canvas learning management system integration for digital learning, and scaffolding tools for differentiated instruction. Once the pilots had been concluded and the input from scholars, staff, and families had been collected, the adoption team met to review the data and make a recommendation. The recommendation was brought before the Instructional Materials Committee for review. The alignment between student recommendations, 81.7%, teacher recommendations, 100%, and family preferences, 85.7%, created stakeholder consensus supporting EduCurious for adoption. The Instructional Materials Committee unanimously approved these recommendations on January 26th, advancing them to the board for final approval. With your approval following this meeting, we will then begin the process of ordering materials and scheduling teacher training. The final steps of ordering materials and curriculum guide writing in the spring and a 3-day summer institute in August. We will then go into full implementation in the fall. Throughout the next school year, professional learning will be provided to teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators to support a successful implementation. We've designed a comprehensive support system to ensure successful implementation. This isn't just a curriculum adoption, it's a comprehensive professional learning system to support teacher instruction to impact student learning. PD will be ongoing and adjusted based on instructional needs. Overall, the majority of the adoption cost is for teacher training, as a curriculum is an open education resource. The only curricular costs are to print the teacher guides, with the possibility of replacing the teacher guides over the years. The multi-year budget allows for predictable planning while ensuring sustained implementation support. Thank you for your time this evening reviewing our social studies adoption process and recommendation for the 12th grade civics. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you for that information. Board members, are there any questions?
No questions, but I do have some comments. I did review the curriculum, and I went from every single page. I read page. I felt like I was getting some remedial, because some things that I learned, in school, and then bringing it to relevance of what's happening today. I thought that it would provide ways and subjects that the kids would be like having, they would have more critical thinking, debates, collaboration, and learning how to advocate for causes. I like that there are topics they can relate to because they've lived through it. And now they can get together and really talk about it, like such as COVID and things like that. Now that's a subject they can really talk about and say, how they would have handled something at that time. But now they can actually be together and talk and not over the phone. They have, I thought the unpacking of the Constitution, the amendments and their rights of free speech and assembly. I thought my favorite thing there was the fact or fib assignment. I liked that part because that would get them talking. And then the red and green, signs, so that'll get a little bit of a debate going on. Then I just think the topics were just something that it was just relatable. So I believe that the exercises and the projects will give them a better perspective of what's going on in the world today, because they're about to be out there. So I think if I was a substitute teacher, as I mentioned to Dr. Pfeiffer and some other people, that if I walked in and had to sub, the teachers' guides were so detailed that I could go in there early and read that, and I would not look like I was fumbling through the class. So I thought that was pretty good. And I believe that the curriculum is appropriate for their age and their grade. I mean, we can't send them out there ignorant. They really have to be able to deal with what's going on in the world. So it's not what we had when we were growing up, and sometimes we have to step back and realize that it cannot stay the same. And do we want them to grow? And so the information that was in that's in the curriculum is going to give them that opportunity to really think about life and what's ahead of them. And we can't decide that we want to hide it from them because it's on the internet. So I believe that we have age-appropriate information in there, and I do believe that they'll enjoy it because they'll get to chit-chat a lot. And so, and I like the projects, and I like the fact that they'll get to choose a project or a topic to advocate for, or something, a cause to advocate for. So it was really good. I mean, I would like to have that class. So, but I really did. I just kept, it was that good that I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading, because it was, cracking open some of the cobwebs in my own head about things that I had to remember that I need to know as well. So, yeah, I'm impressed. So I made the right choice. Yeah, thanks.
Other questions or comments?
I'm sure I'll chime in. I just wanted to share, IT was able to sit down and look over the curriculum. And so similar to what Director Davis said, I like that it was kind of broken up. I also like that it was connected to time and memorial, and you can kind of see what was going on below. And then I shared some feedback with our superintendent. What I like is it's an open education resource, and it'll give us the opportunity to add things if we need to. And so I had just shared, I'm really hoping they connect some of it, because it was kind of giving you a good, a 5,000 level view of kind of what's going on. And I was like, how can we continue to connect it to local? Just because sometimes I don't know that our students are aware of how it's happening right here in their own city, and that these are actually jobs and things that people are deeply invested in. Director Davis, I love that you talk about how much in your experience you were really saw government in action, were able to participate in it. So I was just kind of dreaming out loud, and then also thinking about ways that there could be some hands-on or tangible things, just because I could easily see students getting a little overwhelmed or maybe disconnected. And so I was trying to imagine, how can we make this a little bit more hands-on? Because it was good on conversation and reading, but what can they tangibly create or touch was just some ideas that I was thinking about. But overarchingly, it seems like it's going to work for our district, and it gives us the flexibility to scaffold up if we need to, while still aligning with state law and policy. So I think overall, I appreciate everybody's work.
I also was able to review the curriculum, and I appreciated all the teacher materials. As a teacher myself, I would love to have my classes that well organized that I have to do it all myself, to have that availability of all those materials and the discussion topics and debate issues and all those things already laid out and organized. I noticed that I think it was mentioned that one of the students mentioned that they were able to look at court cases and think about what they would have decided. And I saw two of those were issues that would be relevant to young people. One was when they looked at the amendments, the Fourth Amendment against search and seizure, and does that apply to students in high school? Are they allowed, is a principal allowed to search their backpack? And they were able to discuss that, which is something relevant to them, and figure out what the court decided and decide whether they would have decided that or not. They can actually think about that in a real life context. There was another example where they had to discuss the First Amendment in terms of freedom of expression, and they looked at, are you allowed to wear a T-shirt that says a certain slogan on it? And that was a real court case. They had to think about it and debate it. And they also are not told what to think in this curriculum. I saw that they were told, do you agree or disagree, and why? It wasn't that you were supposed to come up with this answer or that answer, because the court can decide one way or another way, and they realize that there's no hard and fast solution to some of these issues, and that's complex. But it was included in the curriculum that these issues are complicated. Sometimes they're messy. It doesn't always work out the way you might think. And that's the way the real world is. So they had those. I was also kind of impressed that going back 50 years, they had How a Bill Becomes a Law. And that's classic, timeless, and that's how a lot of people learn about how the legislative system works. And that was in there. So a lot of really good materials from the past, present, and maybe into the future. And lastly, thinking about this presentation we just had on the budget, I'm so glad this is an open educational resource, that we're not having to come up with millions of dollars for this curriculum. It is available, and it is flexible, and that we can, add or adjust materials within it. And it's only going to cost the amount for teacher materials and training. So that's really intelligent use of that resource, to be able to have it be open education and still be fitting all of the requirements that we need, state requirements, and what we want it to be for our young people. So I was very impressed looking over that material. A lot of work went into developing that. So yes, thank you for overseeing that process. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I left my notes on the printer, so I'm going to have to ad lib it. I agree with much of what you are saying, that being interactive and all the good things that you're saying. Now, I missed the part where it said how to do a bill. Where was that? Where did I miss that? A video. Okay, well, that brings up the point that most of this education is done with videos, and then for us to review it and not being able to look at the videos is very unfair to us. And so I wrote a list of all the videos that, just because maybe I'm going to try to figure them out. But I think it's great. I think multimedia is a wonderful way to go, but it's hard for us to approve when we don't know what's in the videos, because I found the curriculum to not be balanced. I found it to be it was very controversial in some spots, the topics they chose, a lot of progressive viewpoints. And my recommendation is that we would be allowed to implement a counterbalance to it, so that the kids get two sides of the topics, because it seemed to go all in one direction, and there very little counterbalance. And one of the activities they had that I thought was uncomfortable, and they said that there are uncomfortable topics that they talk about, and it's going to make people uncomfortable, and be aware of this. So I mean, they're sensitive to that. One of them was the kids were to get into the rooms and go to the part of the room that they agreed. And what if a kid felt this, but she didn't have that courage to go to the corner that their position that they stand on? It's kind of like pointing a kid out I think it was just an unfair exercise to have kids do that. So anyway, I think that they, from what I see, there was one on the wealth of democracy or something like that, another section, and it said that it would not be used. And so that it would be used for another class. There was a little Post-it note up there. And the economic disparity, and it didn't seem to celebrate that we do have a viable economic system in this country. It just seemed to be putting it down. And so I was uncomfortable with that. And I would like to be able to present some 5-minute videos to supplement some of those counterpoints. And a lot of focus was on, there's a whole unit just on protesting. Civics to me is being able to, yeah, please. To me, civics is how do we do it in an organized fashion, not out in the streets, not mobocracy. And that's what they were encouraging, is activism, protesting. And the whole unit was all on the protesting. I wish I had my notes, because I had examples of it. And instead of talking about traditional civic responsibility, like serving city councils, how do you bring an amendment forward? How do you engage locally without protesting? And Benjamin Franklin said, what do we have? We have a republic if you can keep it. We are a democratic republic. We are not just a democracy. And as Jefferson said, democracy is 49, what am I trying to say? 50 and 51, which means one group totally loses. You don't get that total balance. Whereas in a republic, you have learned people that we elect to actually get in, review, study, analyze issues instead of just reacting to them. And that's why that we vote for representatives to do that for us, because we all have jobs, we don't have time. And I don't feel encouraging kids into active protest. And then second of all, when we had it here in the state, nationwide, all the kids were out, and it's obviously wasn't a grassroots to have that many people. We do have paid, I mean, a lot of them were paid protesters, and not the students, but the organization of it. And throughout the country, the kids are seeing this modeled. And I'm sorry, you interrupted me, so I've lost my train of thought. So let me get back to where I was going. We're not modeling for the kids. How do you actually take it forward in a responsible way rather than protesting? Oh, what I wanted to say. And so Jefferson said that democracy can be mob rule. That's why we have to have a republic. That's why we have elected officials. And that's why we should be training kids. How do we work within that framework rather than going out to the streets to protest? So that's my opinion. And I would like to be able to, since it's open-ended, I'd like to be able to supplement it to get a little better balance, because I don't think that protest is the only answer to everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? No?
I'm sorry that on the curriculum, even though we didn't see the video, there were the slides there. So that if you didn't notice that, there were slides there for what the video was showing, or what the some of the presentations, maybe not the video for the bill, but the presentations. And I think we only had, what, is there like 3 videos in the curriculum? 3, maybe 4, but it was a lot of presentations. And so I saw the slides. So those were in there. So I don't know if it's possible to even see the, because it's something that's being presented, but I'm sure the people that were reviewing it, to the teachers and students and parents, saw the videos. Okay. All right. That's all.
No, topic, there were 19 videos. I listed all the videos out that they had underlined in there. Maybe the example only had 3, but anyway, I like the idea. Don't get me wrong. I want to just see it balanced. Thank you.
Director Gollins?
Yeah, I appreciate the idea of supplementing, either supplementing other viewpoints or also supplementing local. I mean, we've just been having a discussion now about how to influence our state government to make decisions about funding, and bringing kids into these kind of discussions, or students, I'm sorry. Yeah, bringing students into these discussions is I think great. And so getting the foundation of, how does the government work, and then, yeah, seeing at the local level how it's being done. Yeah, I hope we can achieve that with this curriculum.
Thank you very much for that presentation. The next item on the agenda is the curriculum adoption. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the civic curriculum adoption as presented.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? I'll second.
I'll second.
Oh, we had a second. Okay. Any discussion? I think we had We had some discussion, so
I think we had enough discussion.
no more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I oppose. I want the condition that we are like Miss Dr., or not, Director Morris did last time on the original Educurious. He said he would like to revisit it and see how we can improve it. And that was kind of agreed why he approved. And I likewise feel the same way. I want to see how can we improve this. I love the whole concept of it. I've been a teacher. I know how to, how excited kids can get on contemporary topics, but let's balance it. Let's not make it all one side, one point of view. A bird needs two wings, the right wing and the left wing. And if you have only one, you go into a nosedive. So I want to see that. I want to see us do that in our educational system. Thank you. So I'm going to stand opposed, but I know you guys, it's going to approve, so
So-
it's fine.
I just want to be clear. So Director Murphy is a no. Director Davis? Director Phillips?
Aye.
Okay. I am yes. And Director Gollings?
Aye.
Yes, okay. All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2026-04, final acceptance of construction for the Illahee Middle School. I will read the resolution. Whereas the Board of Directors of Federal Way Public Schools has received the final building commissioning report from Cezanne Group Incorporated regarding the Illahee Middle School new in lieu replacement project. And whereas the superintendent and board have reviewed this report in its entirety and have noted the recommendations by the district's capital projects team, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Federal Way Public Schools that the building commissioning report for the Illahee Middle School new in lieu replacement project is hereby approved, adopted by the Board of Directors of the Federal Way Public Schools, District Number 210, King County, Washington, in a regular meeting held on the 10th day of March, 2026.
Dr. Jones, just for the record clarity, it's Resolution 2026-03 for
Oh.
Illahee acceptance of commissioning report.
Okay, did I read the wrong one? Okay, sorry. Yes, okay. 2026-03 Illahee Middle School Acceptance of Commissioning Report is the correct title. Where are we? Yes, at this time, we'll entertain a motion. Thank you.
I move that the Board of Education approve Resolution 2026-03, Illahee acceptance of commissioning report as submitted.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion. I hear a second. Any discussion? It's a beautiful school. Put it that way. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2026-04, final acceptance of construction for Illahee Middle School. And I'll read the resolution. Whereas the Board of Directors of Federal Way Public Schools has received notification from Bassetti Architects that the Illahee Middle School new in lieu replacement project is complete and in accordance with contract specifications and documents. And whereas the superintendent and board have walked through the project and concur, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Federal Way Public Schools that the work of the contractor former construction is now complete, adopted by the Board of Directors of the Federal Way Public Schools, District Number 210, King County, Washington, in a regular meeting held on the 10th day of March, 2026. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
That the Board of Education approve Resolution 2026-04, final acceptance of construction as submitted.
I'll
I
second
have a
it.
motion. I hear a second. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the in-stream monitoring report response approval. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the sub N3 of voice, whole child, personal responsibility and contributing to an inclusive community is in compliance.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Can I add a second? I mean, can I add a point of view, for a comment real quick?
Yes.
Is that okay? I just want to compliment Dr. Pfeiffer and the awesome job she's doing under challenging circumstances.
Thank you for that. And any opposed? Then motion carries. Next item on the agenda is school reports. As we have 3 scholar representatives, we will alternate reporting at each meeting. At this meeting, we have Izzy Owens. Would you like to start?
Across our district, spring sports have officially started, as well as students picking classes for the 2026-2027 school year, which feels like it's coming up very fast. At Sequoia Middle School, the school day continues to run smoothly with strong focus on maintaining a structured learning environment. Policies and expectations are consistently reinforced throughout the day, helping create a supportive atmosphere for students to learn and succeed. During the level up period, district staff members also visited the school to observe and connect with students, showing continued engagement between district leadership and school community. At Thomas Jefferson High School, students recently gathered for an assembly organized by the Black Student Union in recognition of Black History Month. The event created an opportunity for students to celebrate culture, reflect on history, and strengthen a sense of community within the school. Students at Thomas Jefferson are also currently selecting their courses for the 2026-27 school year, as previously mentioned. And to support this process, counselors have been hosting presentations during advisory that are broadcasted into classrooms, helping students better understand their academic options and plan for their futures. At Todd Beamer High School, 2 students recently qualified for the Western Washington District Tournament in speech and debate after competing at the district level. These students were the only competitors from the entire district to qualify for this tournament, which is a remarkable accomplishment and highlights the strength of communication and leadership skills being developed through these programs. Something that is also in the works at Todd Beamer is Freshman Success Mentor Pairing. This is where Link Crew mentors essentially sign up for curated groups of freshmen, and these mentors help support them through school by encouraging them to go to after school hours and also having daily check-ins. I found this very interesting because it helps keep students accountable while also supporting them and building a real relationship. And I'm excited to see it in full swing. Looking ahead, one of the events that really captures the spirit of our district is STEAM Night. What makes STEAM Night exciting is that it shows students that learning does not stay inside a textbook. It becomes something that you can build, test, design, and create. And I feel our district does a really good job at making that come true at STEAM Night. To encourage more secondary students to attend, one idea could be to highlight the why behind everything. For example, connecting demonstrations to the real world and explaining why we do them can all help students see how interests today can translate into future opportunities. Another approach could be spotlighting students innovators from our own schools, allowing secondary students to present projects, prototypes, or research they are proud of. Because our district offers so many pathways from career and technical education to advanced academics and leadership opportunities, STEAM Night can become more than just an event. It can be a window into what the future looks like for our students. Ultimately, when we highlight creativity, innovation, and real-world applications, we help students see the skills they are developing today and not just the assignments in the classroom. They are the foundation for careers, ideas, and solutions they may create tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is superintendent comments. Dr. Pfeiffer.
Thank you. Last Thursday on March 5th, we held our final early learning gathering of our school year. We had 46 early learning community partners to discuss an early educator's guide to the whole child development and learning. And I just wanted to thank our partners for helping prepare our students for kindergarten to be successful in their education. We know that early learning sets the foundation for a strong start. So I just wanted to thank 46 early learning partners that came to our early learning gathering. And this month, we're celebrating National Reading Month and National Women's History Month. So last Friday, we had a Mark Twain takeover. So I had the pleasure of reading Dragons Like Tacos and the Legend of Rock, Scissor, Paper to the Mark Twain scholars, but so did other central office team members to celebrate Read Across America. And this month, literacy celebrations will continue with highlights on social media, our 5th annual scholar recommended book list that's getting ready to be published, and our ultimately our reading challenge. So I just encourage everybody to get out there and celebrate National Reading Month. And all month long, Federal Public Schools are celebrating the powerful contributions of trailblazing women throughout history with engaging lessons, projects, and events to celebrate the National Women's History Month. I would also like to give a shout out to our own powerful women leaders on our school board. Board President Dr. Jennifer Jones, Vice President Trudy Davis, Director Lakeisha Phillips, and Director Joan Marie Murphy. Thank you for your consistent leadership and for exhibiting the qualities of strong leaders, displaying high integrity, having vision, being strategic, demonstrating courage, honesty, and incredible brilliance. We appreciate you. This week, give him go ahead. This week, we proudly celebrate our incredible education support professionals whose vital contributions keep our schools running smoothly with technical support, maintenance, office assistance, and so much more. They're integral members of Team Federal Way, and so I wanted to just thank them for their incredible work that they do to keep our schools running smoothly. So our scholars continue to impress me, and I want to once again shout out flag football, our Federal Way High School JROTC, all of our cheer teams, our Federal Way Public Schools DECA scholars, and then lastly, who is not coming tonight, we'll celebrate them in the end of March. The Decatur High School Jazz Band has been selected as one of just 5 Seattle area bands to perform at the 29th Annual Starbucks Hot Java Cool Jazz at Seattle's Paramount Theater on March 27th, the first South Sound school to ever take the stage. So shout out to Decatur High School graduates, musicians. All right, on March 19th and 20th, speaking of music, we're proud to present the 3rd annual FWPS Music Festival. During this 2-day event, middle and high school students will perform alongside other musicians from across the district. I'd like to invite everybody to join Federal Way Performing Arts Center for a magical display of talents. You can view the schedule right on our website. The annual district-wide event, which Izzy already talked about, STEAM Exploration Night, is March 26, 6 to 8 p.m. Federal Way High School. I invite everyone to come. And today we had a great visit to Mirror Lake Elementary, where we got to join several 3rd and 4th grade classrooms. We were watching their brilliance on display in the hallways with writing, and then inside we got to watch them engage in close reading strategies, as well as study words, the root words, prefixes, and suffixes. And then we ended our visit getting to drop into an ECAP classroom, where students were eager to show me with pride all of their work they've accomplished to date. One little one was showing me, and that gathered another little one, and then another little one. They were having competition over showing me all of their portfolio. And to top it off, we ended the visit with a classroom photo. Definitely a bucket filler. And then tomorrow, I have 2 community members joining me for superintendent for the day. So they're going to shadow me, and we will be visiting schools and our facilities, as well as joining a roundtable of our district leaders to answer any questions and learn more together. So I'm looking forward to hosting them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is school board comments. We'll start with Director Gollings.
Thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't here last week. Dealt with sickness going around the family. But related to that, I was able to go to the Good Egg Breakfast a couple weeks ago to hear from the King County Health Department about some just some trends in health in South King County. This is something was good for me to be aware of. Little did I know I was about to get hit by it. Also had a great visit with the superintendent and Director Davis to Adelaide Elementary School, which was really fun because my kids were there many years ago. Well, 8 or so years ago. So it was fun to see how the school is adapting, how the students are really engaging at grade level with a few different subjects. We saw some reading, saw some math, so that was good to experience. Really appreciate that, and really appreciate the discussion tonight, civics in action, us trying to work through how to present government and engaging to the next generation, students who will have to keep the government going, keep the schools running, keep the all areas of our government. So yeah, that's all for me.
Thank you, Director Gollings. Director Phillips.
No comments for me tonight. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Vice President Davis.
So the presentation tonight from the Nautilus school here, it's always great to listen to the kids read, and they read with such fluency and courage to get up in front of all those many people. I did go to the visit with Dr. Pfeiffer and Director Murphy, and just going into those third grade classes and seeing all the kids, they're raising their hands, they're so eager to answer questions. It lets you know that they're receiving that information and they understand it. And there's some that just never even take their hands down. They just keep them up the whole time they're there. They don't even take them down because they know all the answers. So it's hard for the teacher to really go around and choose some. And then they also choose some that don't have their hands up. And they actually know the answer, but I think it's just that confidence level of, do I really know it or I don't know? So I like seeing that in action. And then when they break out into their little discussions and have their little debates, and it's something to see them just interact with each other and what they're talking about, and how some of them have just seem so mature with their, with their words and everything. So, they're doing well. The early learning class was full of energy. And they were eager to show us everything. They had pictures of their families and showed, the little projects they were working on. And then the last thing that I saw before I left, well, when we first got started with our visit, was a young scholar having PT in the hallway. And I was just looking at how the courage of that kid and the determination to learn how to walk. And so I was like, this was just a good day when you can go somewhere and see things that are positive and walk out and still have, it's like sunshine. So it was good to see that. And so that makes my day. We get to really go and see what's happening at the schools. And we know that they're doing what we have presented here, the tier 1 instruction. So it's our job to go out there and make sure that that's happening. And so, but it's fun. So we get to see the kids, and they are very proud of their school. They own their schools. And so when you walk in there, they really want to ask you, but they don't, but they give you the look. Why are you in my classroom? So you get that look. And so we have to kind of, go to the back and let them know we're not here to take over anything. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. Director Murphy.
Well, you stole all my thunder, both of you. That was a wonderful visit. One thing you didn't mention, which of course is dear to me, the hand motor connection to learning is so strong that penmanship has been neglected for so many years, and they're now bringing it back. And we saw some beautiful results. And the previous trip that we went through one of the schools, one of the kids wrote down the goal that he had was better penmanship. So, it's the kids are knowing that they can't write, the upper grades, but we're doing it with the lower grades. Now, I don't know, is that being pushed all the way through? Excellent. And then next is Kersey. Step at a time. Okay. So anyway, that was wonderful. The one thing that I did see that was kind of cute, Dr. Pfeiffer got down on the ground as she usually does, and the kids were showing her their portfolios, as what the teacher said, their resumes. And they were so excited. They all they wanted the stage. But anyway, this is Women's Month. And I've lived through a lot. I was one of the first ones in college to get credit. I was shocked when I got a credit card. And because, you know, I went to college and it was you only got a degree in case something happened to your husband. So I want to celebrate two wonderful women. And I hope that when we can add them to our wall of fame, one of them is right here in Federal Way. I don't know if any of you know about the Cabrini hospitals. She wanted to go to China and Europe and all these wonderful places. And she took on the Pope repeatedly, and he sent her to America instead. And then she took on the bishops. And she kept getting denied and denied and denied. And she went into the bowels of New York City, down in the bowels where the homeless people lived. And she brought them all up. She started worldwide 67 different orphanages and hospitals. And she lived in Seattle, and there is a Cabrini Hospital here in Seattle. I would really like to see our district honor her when we do have Women's Month. She belongs right up there with the astronauts. Okay, so then the other one is my very favorite. I'll have to use my phone on this, forgive me. Oh, don't lose it now. Okay, her name is Bridget Biddy Mason. She was born in 1818 as she was a slave, and she was able to petition, and she was able to get her freedom. She sued the government for it. She went out west to California, and she started a boarding house in 1850-51. My ancestors were, my great-great-grandmother was the first covered wagon into San Bernardino. And they went on to LA, and I'm hoping that they had the opportunity to meet Biddy, because she had the boarding house. The Spaniard women took care of the orphan. My grandmother died, and the Spaniard women took care of the children. And so I have an affinity to Biddy. But my quote that I want to talk about, she also became the wealthiest Black person in America at that time. And she was a philanthropist. So Biddy's quote is, "If you hold your hand closed, nothing good will come with it, within it. Open your hand, an open hand is blessed, for it is in giving abundance as one receives, as we receive." So I always try to remind myself of that. Closed fists go nowhere, open hands do. And I think that's one of the things I'm trying to promote tonight, is that protests aren't always the answer. Open hands are. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention the welcome from Principal Veiling to Nautilus tonight. Really appreciate learning about the 4th and 5th grade jobs and the greeting that they're doing, that they're implementing breakfast in the classroom, that they're working with their math and ELA, and they have improved more than half a full year's progress in half a year. That's very impressive, that they're working with families, multicultural night, and of course, I have to mention the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th grade writers who read their stories, who read their writing, and how the grades are building skills. And we saw that evidence as each level was reading with more complexity and more depth in their writing, how they're learning that. Don't think I'll ever forget Donuts and Holes. And I want that little 6th grade scholar to finish his story, because he set it up and it was like a mystery, and we need to hear the ending, because he really knew how to build suspense in that plot. So we have a novelist right there. So I really appreciated hearing all the things that are going on at Nautilus K-8. So thank you very much for that. And next we have public comments, and I'll read my statement here. Federal Way Public Schools Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. Per the Open Public Meetings Act, Public comment should enhance rather than hinder the effective transaction of the district's business. We respect your perspectives and value your civil input and suggestions. The board will listen to public comment, but we don't respond to public comment. However, depending on the nature of your topic or question, the superintendent may ask district administrative staff to follow up. Please keep your comments brief, concise, respectful, and no longer than 3 minutes. No verbal complaints or charges against any district employee or individual director will be allowed during public comment. Thank you in advance for your comments. And the first public comment is Ayanna Davis.
Hi, I'm Ayanna Davis, and my public comment is about Ramu McCoy being a coach for Todd Beamer Track and Field. The students, parents, and community members of Federal Way and I respectfully request that Federal Way Public Schools allow Coach Ramu McCoy to serve as a track and field coach at Todd Beamer High School. Coach McCoy is a valued mentor who supports student athletes' safety, growth, and performance. I understand there have been concerns related to compensation and employment classifications for security staff. However, I ask the district to consider a reasonable solution or accommodation so that Coach McCoy can continue coaching in a manner consistent with district policy and fair compensation practices. Losing this coach negatively impacts student development, team success, and school community support. I urge FWPS to review this decision and work toward a solution that allows Coach McCoy to continue positively contributing to Todd Beamer High School athletics. Prior to coaching at Todd Beamer, he was a Washington State champion in high school. He was a hurdle coach for Kentwood High School for 25 years. And during that period of time, he coached 3 school record holders, a state champion, multiple league and district champions, and along with numerous state finalists and competitors. And within the past 3 seasons with Todd Beamer, he has state qualifiers in each of the 3 seasons and 2 new school records in hurdles. Coach McCoy has supported my personal efforts, whether I did a good job or bad job. He has helped me improve, not just with hurdling, but with sportsmanship, and has helped me see the potential I could not see in myself. He knows how to motivate and push students in a way that is healthy and uplifting, and to lose someone that valuable who can do that and build strong connections with students is hard on the school community and on a hurdler like myself. And I have a petition with 300+ signatures that agree with me. Oh, and Kent, Auburn, and Piop are just a few school districts in our state that allow specifically security officers to coach with a stipend, so why not Federal Way? Federal Way Public Schools allows other departments with 40-hour classified staff to receive stipends, so why not security?
Thank you for your comment. Next comment is Brittany Rogers.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brittany Rogers. I coach cheer at Todd Beamer High School, and I'm going to my 5th year. I first want to start by giving thanks to God, my family, and my village that has helped me through the years of coaching. I've learned that you can't do it by yourself. Sorry. I was first 22 years old when I first got this job, and now I'm 26 years old. And to look back on all the growth I've made is very emotional. When I first got the job, I only had 5 girls on the team, and now we have about 25 girls. Sorry. The girls you saw today were mostly seniors. When I first met them, they were 8th graders, and to watch them grow over the 4 years has been very emotional and a blessing to see how much they have grown and been leaders, and just amazing. This program has faced the shared challenges. From August 2024 to June 25th, I was on leave, and during that time, the team didn't have a season they expected. They had multiple interim coaches, and they missed out on many opportunities, including competing in state that year. But through the experience, I learned that something that's very important, to always trust God's plan. And even when it doesn't make sense, and even when it brings you pain, you gotta trust God through it all. Through those months, I had to lean on God, my family, and my village. If God brings you to it, He will bring you through it, and He did. We had no choice but to win state this year because there was no next year for our seniors. Not out of pressure, but out of purpose. Every year, I tell the team, you never have the same team every year. Every year is different. Now I find myself saying that to myself. I won't have the same team next year, and next year will be really different. I won't see the same faces that I've seen the past 4 years, the ones that have greeted me at practice or cheering on Friday nights. I feel like we were all graduating together, but I stay and they go on and do amazing things in the world. Being able to coach this team has been one of the greatest blessings of my life, and I couldn't let this season end without telling you all just how special they are. Not only are they state champions, but they are resilient, determined, and inspiring, and they're my girls. They're the reason I would continue to coach until God leads me in a new direction. Thank you for your time and everything you guys do, and I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you for your comment. Next comment is Adrienne Davio.
Hello, Superintendent Pfeiffer and school board members. At the February 10th City Council meeting, I raised concerns about the liability of districts, cities, teachers, unions, and elected officials using their positions to promote LGBTQ issues and political ideologies in school and government settings that have resulted in student injury and multi-million-dollar judgments. Senate Bill 5599 designated Washington State as a sanctuary for transitioning youth. The Department of Children, Youth, and Families will provide medical and surgical services to children from this and other states without parental notification and at Washington State taxpayer expense. Senate Bill 5497 made Washington State a sanctuary for illegal immigrants. Legislators, public officials, and teachers are showing poor judgment by perpetrating policies that violate immigration laws, parental rights, and protections for minors. Government officials, teachers, and elected representatives should not use their roles to put taxpayers and children at least legal risk. Sanctuary policies were not subject to public approval, yet taxpayers face the consequences of lawmakers' actions and educators' decisions without consideration for their impact. These outcomes may reflect malfeasance, neglect of duty, or even breach of office. 2 questions I have for the superintendent and the school board. 1, does Federal Way School District have liability coverage for physical, emotional, and financial harm resulting from policies and ideologies being promoted in schools? What is the deductible amount and what is the judgment ceiling limit? And I believe earlier, Dr. Pfeiffer said there is no tort limitation in Washington. Recently, a $2 million judgment was awarded to a girl who had her breasts removed at 16, resulting from ideologies promoted by schools, surgeons, and psychiatric professionals. There are about 30 more lawsuits filed and more are coming regarding minor transitioning. 2, what is the Federal Way School District plan for parents that want to effectively opt their children out of LGBTQ ideological influence? The Supreme Court ruled that parents can opt out of classes with ideological themes. Washington Senate Bill 5462 required incorporation of LGBTQ into every subject, rather than treated as a separate topic starting school year 2025. Therefore, it is impossible for parents to opt out because these ideologies are intertwined in curricula plastered all over Federal Way Public Schools and on the Federal Way Public School website. If liability insurance doesn't cover damages, teachers and officials should stop risky policies. Taxpayers, children, and parents deserve support when government and school social experiments fail. Please clarify in writing what is covered, what is excluded, and who will be legally responsible for damage resulting from harmful Washington State public policy. Also clarify in writing the pathway for parents to effectively opt out as guaranteed by the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Next comment is Victoria Stefaniak.
Hello, and I want to start off by saying thank you, members of the board, for the recognition that Todd B. Merdeka has received tonight. We truly appreciate your acknowledgement of the work that our members and our advisors have put in throughout this school year. However, with this recognition, we would also like to ask for greater support to our club, especially financially. Our DECA team has competed and placed at state every single year. In this place, we were even able to place first. We are beyond proud of Cammie and Tyrell for that accomplishment. I am also incredibly proud of the fact that within our school district, our school sends the most students to the international competition, which is a huge achievement. Unfortunately, many of our members who qualify for this international competition or even state competition end up not attending because of the financial burden. While we do receive funding from our ASB, the funding mainly goes towards our membership dues and our competition registration fees. The remaining costs for state and international competition often falls on students and their families, which can end up stripping away amazing opportunities from our students. An example of our limited funding happened at our area competition back in January. We were not provided with a school bus, but rather a district-issued van that was over 23 years old and had mold present inside the van. Not only did it have mold, but we were also not able to fit all of our competing members, and they had to find a different transportation. Meanwhile, students from other districts were able to travel on well-maintained charter buses. The issue wasn't the van itself, but rather the condition. Experiences like this can make students feel as though they are not respected, valued, or supported. Some parents were concerned that they took time off work to come pick up their children because they felt that the conditions of the van could have some serious health impacts and refused to allow them to ride back in those conditions. Situations like this can place unexpected stress on students, families, and advisors. We have brought this up with our school and they are currently addressing this issue, but this would not have happened in the first place if we would have had adequate funding for school buses like we have in past years. We recognize that resources may be limited, but we need situations like this to be addressed so that issues do not arise in the future. We hope that all students can travel safely and feel supported while representing their schools and district at events. Through all of this, I am still so incredibly proud to represent our school and our school district and continue working hard to compete at the highest level possible. But additional support would allow for more of our students to participate in these events, remove barriers for those who qualify for higher levels of competition, and ensure that our club can continue to thrive and succeed. Thank you once again for the recognition that Todd B. Merdeka has received tonight. Thank you also for your time and for considering how the district can better support its students.
Thank you for your comment. And with that, we are adjourned.